I watched a video on Rome Report's YouTube channel not too long ago, which is basically a Vatican news channel which reports on movements and messages of the Pope and other things related to the Catholic Church. I left a comment under a video entitled Pope Francis Explains Importance of Resting by Contemplating Goodness. I got some objections to my comment, which I'm going to be addressing in this video. But before I do that, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell if you're new so you don't miss any of my future uploads. So the video I watched on Rome Reports was a message from the Pope encouraging the observance of the Lord's Day. Let's take a look at it.
Dear brothers and sisters, in our continuing catechesis on the 10 Commandments, we now consider the command to keep holy the Lord's Day. For the Scriptures, this day of rest is not a mere escape or diversion, but a command to imitate God Himself, who on the seventh day rested from His works and contemplated the goodness of His creation. Our day of rest, like His, must be an occasion of joy, praise, and thanksgiving for the gift of life, culminating in our celebration of the Eucharist, the supreme act of thanksgiving given to us by the Lord Himself.
So in short, keeping the Lord's Day holy is commanded by God to imitate God who rested on the seventh day of creation week. There's only one problem with that. The Roman Catholic Church keeps Sunday holy as the Lord's Day or Sabbath, while the Bible tells us it's on the seventh day of the week, which is actually Saturday. I mentioned this in a comment under the video stating, the seventh day is Saturday, not Sunday, and I got a few objections. One person named Beaverhausen wrote, yes, we know, we don't keep the Sabbath, we keep Sunday. Assuming that Beaverhausen is a member of the Roman Catholic Church, which I think is a pretty safe assumption to make since this is a Catholic channel, that is not entirely correct from a Catholic perspective, because the Roman Catholic Church teaches that Sunday is the Sabbath now, that it has been changed. As a matter of fact, the Catholic Church is the one responsible for changing it and even admits this. For example, the Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine reads, question, which is the Sabbath day? Answer, Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question, why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer, we observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church and the Council of Laodicea in AD 336 transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. Question, why did the Catholic Church substitute Sunday for Saturday? Answer, the Church substituted Sunday for Saturday because Christ rose from the dead on a Sunday and the Holy Ghost descended upon the apostles on a Sunday. Question, by what authority did the Church substitute Sunday for Saturday? Answer, the Church substituted Sunday for Saturday by the plenitude of that divine power which Jesus Christ bestowed upon her. So the Roman Catholic Church changed the Sabbath to Sunday. They claim they had the right to do this because they think God gave them the authority to change His law, and they think that since Jesus rose from the dead on Sunday, that makes it the Lord's Day now. In case that's not clear enough, Pope Francis regularly calls Sunday the Sabbath. A New York Times article entitled, Pope Francis has a few words in support of leisure, quotes the Pope as saying, people who work must take the time to relax, to be with their families, to enjoy themselves, read, listen to music, play a sport. But this is being destroyed, in large part, by the elimination of the Sabbath rest day. And what day is that? Pope Francis is about to tell us. More and more people work on Sundays as a consequence of the competitiveness imposed by a consumer society. Therefore, if you're a Catholic and you want to argue with me about whether or not your church observes the Sabbath on Sunday, then you can do that. whatever. But I doubt that you're going to argue with your Pope. Not to mention, I grew up as a Catholic, so I know the Catholic Church teaches that Sunday is the Sabbath. Another comment by Day Belingit reads, God is truth. Saturday is not the Sabbath day in New Testament. Christ was resurrected in Sunday. If you are Christian, so if you didn't follow the command of Christ, you are not Christian, right? Well, for your information, nowhere does it say that the Sabbath has been changed from Saturday or the seventh day of the week to Sunday or the first day of the week in the New Testament. So that's just presumptuous. There is no reason to believe, as important as it may be, that the resurrection of Jesus Christ on the first day of the week makes Sunday the new Sabbath now. The Bible just doesn't say that. Not to mention, we already have a ceremony which commemorates Jesus' resurrection, and that's baptism. Baptism is a reminder of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus to save us. Romans chapter 6 verses 3 through 4 puts it this way, Know ye not that so many of us as were baptized into Jesus Christ were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. Therefore, there's no point in keeping Sunday holy in honor of Jesus' resurrection, since the Bible already gives us the ceremony of baptism to commemorate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And besides that, you can't change the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday because it's a memorial of creation. The fourth commandment, the one that tells us to keep the Sabbath holy, in Exodus chapter 20, verses 10 through 11 says, But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. The Sabbath is like the birthday of the world, and you could no more change the day the Sabbath is on than you can your own birthday to another day. Therefore, in order for God to change the Sabbath to another day, say Sunday, for example, he would have to recreate the world and rest on the first day of the week. Another person by the name of Ellis Morin objected and said, Even Jesus did not follow the Sabbath on Saturday. He resurrected on the day after Sabbath, Sunday. Read the Bible before you speak stupid things. First of all, what does Jesus resurrecting on Sunday have anything to do with keeping the Sabbath holy? But besides that, did Jesus keep the Sabbath? Speaking of Jesus, Luke chapter 4 verse 16 says, And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and, as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. A custom is something that you do on a regular basis. Therefore, Jesus went to the synagogue on the Sabbath regularly. And assembling with other believers to worship God on the Sabbath is something that's commanded by the Bible. For instance, Leviticus chapter 23 verse 3 says, 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. Google defines convocation as a large formal assembly of people in particular, or the action of calling people together for a large formal assembly. So people were called together on the Sabbath for a holy purpose, to worship God. Ezekiel chapter 46 verse 3 confirms this, stating, Likewise the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before the Lord in the Sabbaths and in the new moons. So Jesus very much kept the Sabbath. In addition, the Sabbath is one of the 10 commandments. And Jesus said in John chapter 15 verse 10, If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. So if you say that Jesus didn't keep the Sabbath, you're saying that Jesus is a liar because he said he kept God's commandments. By the way, on a positive note, follower of Christ 777 said, many Catholics will point to Revelation chapter 1 verse 10, which speaks of the Lord's Day. What is the day of the Lord? Isaiah chapter 58 verse 13. The Lord thy God says through Isaiah that the Sabbath, which is the seventh day, not the first day of the week, is my holy day. That's a good point. Let's take a look at Isaiah chapter 58 verses 13 through 14 together. It says, if thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, that means stop stepping on it, stop disrespecting it, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day. What does God call the Sabbath? He calls it his holy day. That means the seventh day Sabbath is the Lord's day, not Sunday. Continuing on, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. The Lord's Day is not Sunday, as many suppose. The Bible never calls the first day of the week the Lord's Day. It says that the seventh day Sabbath is God's holy day. Let's look at one more comment. Fabrizio said, the old covenant has been supplanted by Christ's covenant, so this no longer applies and has never applied to Christians. Some people think that the new covenant does away with God's law, and as a result, it's no longer necessary to keep the Sabbath anymore. But not only is that unbiblical, which I'm about to show you, it's also illogical. If the new covenant abolishes or replaces the 10 commandments with something else, that means it's okay to worship other gods, lie, steal, commit adultery, murder, and dishonor your parents. Does that sound right? Not if you ask me. Yet some people are so desperate to do away with the Sabbath that they'll claim that all of the commandments have been abolished by the new covenant. Have you ever heard that argument before? I'm sure many of you have. And it's nothing new. But that's not what the new covenant says. Hebrews chapter 8 verses 8 through 10 says, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. According to the new covenant, does God's law get abolished, changed, or replaced? No! Instead, God writes it in our hearts and minds, which means that we love God's law and are willing to obey it. This is really talking about conversion. That's what happens when somebody is born again. So hopefully this video has cleared some things up, especially for those of you who have been genuinely wondering whether or not Christians should still keep the seventh day Sabbath. Sunday is not the Sabbath. It's not even the Lord's Day. Saturday is. It can't be changed no matter how hard men try, because it's a memorial of creation and part of God's eternal law, and it hasn't been done away with by the new covenant. By the way, if you like the shirt I'm wearing, you can get this and other shirts like it at ariseapparel.com. I'll leave a link in the video description which you can click on to visit their store. And if you use the discount code BibleFlockbox, you get 10% off on all your purchases. Click on the screen to learn more about the Sabbath by watching my video entitled 20 Facts About the Sabbath Every Christian Must Know. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it and share it. Please pray for my channel that it may continue reaching people for Christ. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.